Hello, everybody. This is Joe, all on my lonesome this week because guess what? We're super crazy busy. There's a lot going on. Obviously, I'm recording this on Wednesday, the morning after, deep in the aftermath, and whew, it's pretty crazy out there. So, we're not going to get together this week to record. We've got too much going on between a move, between Comic Creators Block Party Fallout, which, by the way, for everyone that showed up to Comic Creator Block Party this last Saturday, thank you so much. Everyone was so excited and happy. It was really, really a big highlight for us. We had a great time with all those creators, and we'll really get into that kind of next week when I've got Jeff and Coral back in the studio. But for this week, what we're going to do is talk a little business, and then I'm going to throw it to one of our panels from this last weekend, something that might be a little more timely now. First up, wanted to let you guys know we're doing a pinball tournament that is all about Goblin before Thanksgiving. So this week, our Goblin pinball tournament is a high score tournament. You can come in anytime throughout the day this Thursday, play Jaws, and check in with the desk. Make sure they've got your usernames down and contact information. Just swing by anytime. It's going to be a blast. You play Jaws, you get a high score. You make sure you sign in with your Stern ID, and we'll be good to go. We'll reach out once the winner is announced, and make sure you get your trophy in your hand. And we've also got Women's Book Club coming out on the 14th. So if you haven't signed up yet for Women's Book Club, sign up. It's going to be 8 billion genies. The concept being that when the entire planet gets one wish from a genie that just all appears in one day, I think today might be a good idea of some of the craziness that might happen. So this book is great, though. It is really inspiring, a lot of fun. It's by Charles Sewell with art by Ryan Brown. It is funny, heart-wrenching, heartwarming, and just a great old time. It's a shop favorite. We recommend you check that out. That is for the women and the non-binary pals. It's going to be meeting on the 14th. So make sure you get your 10% off on your hard copy of the book at the store before then, with plenty of time to read before 7 p.m. on the 14th for Women's Book Club. This weekend, Friday and Saturday, we've got the Foundation's pre-release event. Those tickets are going fast, so make sure that you sign up and get your tickets ahead of time. There may be some left over at the door on the day, but we don't really know quite yet. The first one's going to be 6 p.m. on Friday with a 1 p.m. seating and a 6 p.m. seating on Saturday. So that's kind of all the big programming. Like I said, next week we'll get back, and we are really excited to talk to everyone about our favorite things of Comic Creator Block Party. But until then, I'm going to toss to a panel that we're going to rush out for you guys from Comic Creator Block Party. That's going to be our A panel, which was hosted by Jeff. It's our LGBTQIA plus panel. And I was lucky enough that I was in running the board and recording it, and I'm very excited to share this with you guys. Panelists include David Boer, Josh Trujillo, Mark Andraco, Nicole Maines, Rex Ogle, and Tim Sheridan. This was a super lively conversation, a lot of fun. It brings me a smile just thinking about it, and I think we could all use a little bit of queer joy right now. So excited to kick it off, and here we go with our LGBTQIA plus panel from Comic Creator Block Party 2024.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first panel of Comic Creators Block Party 2024. We're inside this time, so that's cool. You know, no sun.
Literally.
I've got an awesome group here with us. If you could just let's just go around and introduce ourselves. Yeah. Obviously, I'm Jeff. I own Revenge of. Thank you. Please.
I'm Nicole Maines. I'm an actor and a writer for DC.
I'm Josh Trujillo. I'm a writer, and I do DC and Marvel and etc.
I'm Rex Ogle. Marvel will not hire me for some reason. X-Men one day, but I write kids' books, middle grade and YA.
I'm Mark Andraco. I've been doing this way too long. And I would like to talk to you about Scientology today.
Have you heard the good news?
My name is David Boer, and I'm here to sell you Tupperware. No, I've written for all of the big indie publishers, but like Rex, I have not been invited to do Marvel and DC. I think he's blackballed me, and I've blackballed him. So
I've written for DC.
oh, it's just the Marvel.
I'm Tim Sheridan, and I've taken all of David Boer's work at DC.
There's only room for one person doing gay stuff, right?
Oh, well, we'll see how this panel goes.
We only have a half hour here.
Lock the doors.
I'm glad that I got all of you in the same room because I wanted to ask what is going on with my application for the game Mafia. I turned it in as soon as we opened the store, but I haven't quite gotten in yet.
It's an election year. There's a lot of interest right now, so we'll get to it.
And I'm actually the busboy in the Gay Mafia restaurant. So I
Oh,
can't help
nice,
you.
nice.
I've hit you up online and you ignore me.
Oh, yeah, that happens. I hear that all the time, actually.
It's because your face isn't in the picture.
There's a
Haven't
gay
been into
mafia.
the office in months.
No, but on a serious note, I wanted to ask the first question for the panel. Obviously, representation is important to all of us, but I wanted to know kind of how you each approach it in your work when trying to be, not overly heavy-handed with the representation, but represent us in a good light and all that. Maybe let's start with Nicole.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really get too worried about being heavy-handed.
Yeah.
I think that we ought to be. I think we deserve it. I think
For
we've
sure.
earned it.
Here, here.
I did a graphic novel and had the opportunity to kind of introduce ballroom into DC Comics culture
Amazing.
and got to, and for a YA graphic novel book, I think that was the first time that a lot of young readers were kind of being introduced to ballroom and queer history and queer culture,
Yeah.
which was very exciting for me because as we're seeing with the book bans and everything, if we're not going to teach our own history, no one's going to.
Absolutely.
So I think it's absolutely worth it to be a little heavy-handed because
Yeah.
straight people aren't being subtle. They are sick.
I mean, listen, I'm all for more Green Lantern down at the docks, getting it done. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Isn't it ironic that wood was his weakness?
Ironic or
On the
On the
nose.
nose.
On the nose.
The signs were there.
What about you, Mark? How do you approach it?
Well, I, as a kid, was always suspect when there was something that felt like it was being made for me.
Yeah.
So I tend to like characters who happen to be things. I don't write male characters or female characters or gay characters. I write characters who happen to be. Because if you write the adjective first, you run the risk of being didactic.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything really great wisdom to promote, so I like putting characters who are just characters who happen to be those things. Like when I did Obsidian in Manhunter, I reached out to DC and I said, this guy, everyone who's written him, even when it was a bunch of straight men, they sublimated this was a gay character. Can we make him a gay character? And because it felt organic. I don't like just putting representation for representation's sake. 'Cause
Sure.
I think you risk turning more people off if it's just there as a symbol, and it's not interesting. They're not characters; they're just ciphers.
Right.
So,
Right. What about you, Rex? How about with the children's books and how do you approach?
Yeah, I mean, with children's books, I went in being like, I grew up obviously in this world, and so all my protagonists were straight for a long time. And then I was like, why am I doing this? Like, who am I writing for? And then so I didn't intentionally do it, but when you grow up, you know at a young age you're gay, but you don't come out till later. So for me, I've kind of done that with my books, as I've tricked people into reading my stuff, and then later I'm like, here's some gay stuff.
Yeah.
And people are like, what?
Gotta reel 'em in.
So yeah, I'm kind of like luring people in with the normal stuff, and then I'm like, see, gay people are just like you. Like, this is not, they're not different. They're going through the same things you're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. David, how about you?
Well, I'm with Mark about mainstreaming. I think there's definitely a place for like coming out and bullying stories and that kind of thing, but also just putting the queer characters into like I wrote Killer Queens for Dark Horse. I pitched it as Guardians of the Galaxy, which is my dad joke way of pitching it. Thank you very much. Panel over. But it was like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, but what if the main characters were gay? So it's a big fun space romp.
So Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon.
Exactly. But just very on the nose with it. But I do find now that I'm getting a little bit older, that a lot of my stories are featuring characters that are sort of, I don't think we've seen a lot of, I have friends who are going through like the adoption process to have kids.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my stories now are about two dads and two moms, and their kids are like teenagers, and they're dealing with stuff that like horror stuff or, drama around their families. And it's kind of normalizing that family structure in a story where the two parents just happen to be gay, and sort of making that be a model, like an alternative model to like the traditional family.
Right.
Just that's another traditional family.
There's been some interesting things this year of where it's like not been much of a plot point that things are queer, and that's kind of what I appreciate personally, is seeing that just normalized. What about you, Josh? How do you approach?
Oh gosh. So I mean, just thinking about Manhunter. Actually, that was the book that I was reading and driving into LA to read at Golden Apple way back when. And so like that was huge because we didn't have any representation, right? And so like now we have a wider conversation about like what being queer is and different identities, and like it's so cool to like find aspects of yourself that you can put out there and realize that people are interested in that. You know what I mean? Like it's not. Incidentally, queer characters are great, and also I think there's still room for a lot of famous first, a lot of important kind of character types and things like that haven't been explored through a queer lens yet.
Absolutely. What do you have to say for yourself, Tim?
Well, so it's interesting because, I started my career in animation. And so what it comes down to, like I haven't done creator-owned indie stuff. So I've been working for The Man. And The Man has a lot of opinions about how we represent.
Talk about an agenda, am I right?
But they do. And so like in animation, I had found that I was having to do a lot of coding still to this day. And okay, I thought that was me.
Nice.
That is only a sample of my powers, by the way.
DC coming down.
Yeah, they're coming for me. So I had to do a lot of coding and stuff like that. And, you kind of push where you can. Then I was working in comics, and I had a chance to do this book, Alan Scott, The Green Lantern.
Look at that one.
This was the first explicitly queer lead character that I'd gotten to write.
Yeah.
And I found that I was suddenly in the position of being like an activist for this character and for queer people and representation in comics. And I had to be uncompromising. Like I was working for people who don't have the same experiences that I have and that we have. And so I had to kind of just really push as much as I could to get the stuff in here that was honest and necessary.
Right.
So I think it's a little bit different in different parts of the industry. But in comics, I think, especially in creator-owned stuff, we have a chance to be absolutely unflinching and uncompromising and get our stories out there.
Absolutely. And I feel like I said, this last year, it's just, there's so many options for stories out there, and it's, so many things to choose from. But is there anything, and this is another question for the group, that really stuck out to you this year? Not, obviously not your own work, but other people's work. What about you, Josh?
Oh gosh. I was about to say the Alan Scott book, but it's right behind me. What's some breakout works? There's a lot of small press stuff that's kind of coming out now that's really interesting, like Stack Deck Press or Prism Comics is kind of branching out into publishing some more stuff too. I love all the stuff that James Tynan's doing, which is a lot of like sometimes overt queerness, but a lot of incidentally queer characters and themes as well. Yeah. And the idea that we can reach that kind of mainstream success, like telling our stories, is really exciting to me.
For sure. What about you, Nicole?
Well, I always go right to Jadzia Axelrod, who writes Galaxy. She did Galaxy, the Prettiest Star, and then she just did her Hot Girl miniseries. And Galaxy is another trans alien superhero in DC Comics. And I always get excited when I see her doing stuff. First of all, because Jadzia's a brilliant freaking writer, and no one knows comics like she does. But I just always kind of get a little excited and giddy that I'm like, we have this surplus where we have more than one.
Right.
Which is insane to me. I'm like, wait, we can do, and these characters can go in different directions, and we can have multiple trans characters having different storylines and different levels of moral grayness. Dreamers of war criminal. But that's good writing.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to blow up anyone else's answer, but one of my standouts was Sainted Love this year. I don't know if any of you guys read that, but
That was my answer.
Talk about being heavy-handed in like the best possible way. You know, it's like this book was not for the straights; it was for us, but also enjoyable for everyone. What about you, David?
So obviously, I love everybody's work on this panel.
This isn't Miss America.
Yes, I'm just happy to be up here with all of you.
Get out of here, Sandy.
There's this DC book that came out recently that I really loved. And
You
it's
like
called
Manhunter?
Absolute Batman. No, I'm just kidding. It's his book. No, I'm going to sing it from the rooftops until my very last breath. There's this book out there called My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Neil Ferris, and the second volume came out, I think, this year or late last year. Have you ever heard of this?
It's
Oh my
huge.
God, it's set.
I mean, thick.
It's set in the 60s, and it's this 12-year-old kid who's like obsessed with like famous monsters of filmland and that sort of thing, and she's also like struggling with her queer identity. She sees herself as a werewolf detective, and she's investigating the death of her upstairs neighbor who survived the Holocaust. And it's a lot. And it's told in a journal format where it's like a slam book. What are those called? The
Trevor
steno?
Keepers, like a
Steno book, the black and white. And she's drawn in colored ink. She's just crosshatched everything.
It's all
of the
ballpoint
art.
pen.
Ballpoint pen, and it is just a feast. It pushes the boundaries of comics, and it's absolutely wonderful.
Is it available at Revenge of?
Probably.
They can order it.
Certainly
They
for
can order
order.
it.
We could order it.
It's just one of my top 5 of all time.
No, it was a huge hit. It kept Fantagraphics open. That's why it took so long to do the second
Won
one.
Eisner Awards.
Yeah,
Wow.
I will say,
fantastic.
I mean, piggybacking on that, like in traditional publishing, there's been a small revolution that's slowly happening where there's a lot of queer content coming out because there's queer creators who are stepping up and there are like queer editors and agents who are helping them to make books. So, and not just for adults, but for kids, like Scholastic Graphics and First Second are putting out so much good content, like Molly Ostertag's Deep and Dark. But with banned books coming under attack, especially in rural America, Genderqueer by Maya Kobob, I don't know how to pronounce that last.
I think.
Yeah, there we go. Genderqueer is the #1 banned book in America,
Wow.
and it's so important to see that on that list, and it's getting so much attention and so much news, and a lot of people, well, it's banned. I'm like, that's great attention for us because it shows this is an important story. We need to be seeing more of these because people's life experiences are so valuable, especially queer people.
Absolutely. Tim?
Well, I mean, I think that, first of all, let me just say, everybody, I don't know if everybody watched Agatha all along, but I'm a TV guy.
No spoilers, no spoilers.
So, but what we get to see Joe Locke doing on that show, very breaking ground in the way that people broken ground, and so it's exciting that stuff like that is happening out there, and on a huge scale like that. So hopefully that's going to open more doors for people. But I want to say this, which is, queer creators don't just make explicitly queer content. And there are, but I think we can find, I think we still see ourselves in the work of those creators as well. So, I would just say if a book, read my other books. No, read. there are other things out there. I think when we
Are you talking about
queer-
He-Man?
Yes, that's very cool.
That's very cool.
When we support queer creators, I think we have more of an opportunity to get explicitly queer stories in big mainstream places. So that's just something I wanted to say.
Absolutely. Mark?
I've been just rereading Tagame's My Brother's Husband.
Yeah.
Which, if you haven't ever read it, I'm an old man, so reading manga is really hard for me to read backwards like that. But Tagame is known for his really, really hardcore sort of bear fetish, porn stuff.
Yeah.
But My Brother's Husband is an all-ages book. It's about a Japanese man whose twin brother died in Canada, and his brother's lover comes back to see the family, and he has this guy has his 9-year-old daughter, and the 9-year-old daughter gets to ask the questions that most straight people think, like, who's the woman, who's that, all these questions, and that sort of thing, and it's handled in such a beautiful way. It's just lovely, and I've given out probably a dozen copies to friends of mine who have kids who have gay relatives, because it's a gorgeous book. It'll make you cry just because it's so lovely. And this isn't a comic book thing, but it's the best show on television, and I don't love these books, but Interview with a Vampire is fucking amazing.
Yeah, that show is amazing.
It is like Sopranos
Absolutely.
level good, and it is so gay. It almost goes circles back around and goes straight again.
It really is. I mean, my God. Yeah.
Well, it can't be the best show on television because Agatha was the best show on television.
Fellow Travelers was pretty good too.
Those were miniseries.
There was a lot of great gay television this year as well. Like I know we just binged the new season of Heartstopper, which is like the most wholesome
Can you
gay
imagine
television.
if when we were 12 years old, Heartstopper was on television?
No.
I am so proud of society because you watch that, and I have my nieces and nephews all watch it, and they're straight kids. It's just this lovely thing where everyone is treated as normal. It's not an issue thing. It's just, this is who we are. Let's accept it and move on. And it's so elegant and so classily done. It's just, it's annoying.
I haven't read it. It's
fantastic.
Is it similar? Is the show
Yeah,
a good adaptation?
she's the head writer and the showrunner.
Oh, that's amazing.
Wow.
That's
Yeah, we
amazing.
sell
Now,
those
here's
books
the
like crazy.
thing. If we get a queer show, can it last more than one season before it gets canceled?
Heartstopper's on 4.
Well, thank goodness nothing else is.
I think Heartstoppers is on the smallest shoestring of a budget, so they're just like, sure, crank them out. But it's,
But this is what we're seeing, especially at Netflix. We're getting these queer shows finally, and they're not being given proper time for audiences
Absolutely.
to build or to find the show. They're not
What do you mean? A season of 5 episodes isn't enough for you to?
canceled after 5 weeks.
It's kind of the same way though with miniseries and comics as well. It's like when we only get a few issues. It's.
But I think, and this is where my mind's at, and I'm gonna keep harping on Agatha, but I think it's a perfect example of like when we open the door to new storytellers and people who haven't always been in these positions of power and getting to decide what people are watching, we see these well done, well crafted, passionate, diverse stories that are coming from different perspectives and different angles, and we're seeing the response to it, and people respond to it and love it and want more of it.
Absolutely.
So I wish the people in the positions of power that we would recognize, like, no, there is a desire for diverse, interesting new stories.
Yeah, and Agatha is a good example of just like incidental characters just being who they are, and it wasn't really necessarily like a plot driving anything. It just they were, and it was kind of refreshing.
Well, Patty Lupone alone makes it the gayest show on television.
Obviously.
Okay, now talk about that.
Any standouts for you, Rex, of other television shows or anything that have
I don't watch a lot of
inspired your
TV
work?
anymore. Oh, English Teacher. That's a good one.
Oh,
There you
yeah.
go.
English teacher. Very good.
Yeah.
This is a guilty pleasure. Red, white, and royal blue. Because
Yep.
if it wasn't gay characters, it's a mediocre Meg Ryan movie. But because it's gay, I mean, as I say this with tongue partially in cheek, it's cool that we've reached a point with LGBT characters that we can have mediocre romantic comedies.
Yeah.
That's a success. And I'm underselling it. It's very charming, and both of the guys are hot as
Love
fuck.
Bros.
Yeah. But that was like the highest rated original movie on Amazon.com
Yeah.
last year. And kids today are so cool that they don't. I went to a high school, basically Stepford, Ohio. 1,000 white kids. Now my high school has a gay-straight alliance. Young kids today don't care about that. That's just like, oh, your hair color is brown. Oh, you're gay. Oh, whatever, cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, when I was a kid, and I think for a lot of us watching movies, straight movies, we would put gay things into them. We would see that. And that's now straight people are doing that. They're seeing themselves with gay characters or trans characters or bi characters, and it's becoming this equilibrium, which is, when you have stuff like Trump, going back to the dark ages, we're so progressive and so futuristic with the young kids and their views on sexuality and love that it makes me feel like I'm 190 years old. Because if
You are.
that's true. If you had told
You
me
look great.
Heartstopper would exist, or even fellow travelers, if even that would exist, I wouldn't have believed you 20 years ago that would be a thing.
Yeah.
Well, like at my Barnes and Noble, they have like a set from Heartstopper set up, so you can go to one of the kids' bedrooms, and it's just like, this is so mainstream. You know what I mean? Like, this is for like aunties and stuff to like bring their. It's like it's crazy. Like the mainstream appeal of Heartstopper is such a testament to how well produced that is, and also like it's a real shot in the arm for all of us, I'd say.
But I will say we're living in a bubble. We're in
Yeah.
the urban. Like I do school visits in rural places, and homophobia is still very real in these places. The
For
teachers
sure.
don't bother to Google whether I'm gay or not. So at the very end of the speech, which I do purposely, there's always a kid who's like, "Are you married?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a husband," and everyone is like, "Ooh," and the teachers are in the back being like,
locked.
"There are kids in
And
Middle
then the grinder
America.
ping goes.
These kids whose parents are voting for Trump. Like these are the kids out there who." Yes, they want to watch Heartstopper, but they have to do it hidden under the sheets.
I mean, we were watching things hidden under the sheets too when we were growing up, but it wasn't Heartstopper.
We did what we had to do.
Survival out there.
That was a war.
Back
and
in
I did
those
what I
docks
had.
with Green Lantern, you know?
Don't you feel like, though, it's easier for them to get this content from comics than maybe from the television that's going to tell their parents what
That's-
they watched?
Easy to get comics? There are like 12 comic book stores in the nation, and the rest
Well,
of it's
online,
online.
though.
Online, webcomics.
But I do wonder about that too with like the book bans and stuff. I think as adults we make a huge deal about book bans, and we should make a big deal. But I think if you ask the kids, they're like, oh yeah, we go and we read these things online when nobody's, when no adults are around, and they're getting this content. They're able to find genderqueer and that sort of thing. And we are the ones who have to fight those book bans while the kids are like, we're reading them anyway.
And that does work. I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, please.
There was, when Love is Love came out, the book we did going on 8 years ago now, we just passed the $1 million global mark for raising charity.
Let's go.
And in the new version, we're going to do a 10th anniversary version, and J.K. Rowling's page is getting removed. Because fuck her. And my friend Dominique Jackson, who played Electra Abundance on Pose, is going to do a page to replace that.
Yes.
So,
Okay. Can I just say, fan cast for Storm?
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
But I got an email when Love is Love came out, and because I'm pretty public with my email and stuff, I don't have, and this kid from Kansas sent me an email. He said, I'm 15 years old and I'm gay, and my parents are evangelical, and I read Love is Love, and it made me realize that all I have to do is get through high school, and there are people out there for me. And I did that book to help process my pain and my fear and my PTSD of the AIDS crisis and everything else. And to have something like that touch one person's life, I win life. That's like, that's such a privilege,
For sure.
And these kids are finding the stuff. Like Josh said, they'll find it, and it makes a difference. If you want to do something to help, find a library in your town or your state that you grew up in, and donate some books to them. Donate some Heartstopper copies to the library and stuff, because for a lot of kids, like Rex said, most of the country is not in big cities, and that's where they find this stuff. That's why libraries are so important, and good librarians are fighting the good fight really hard right now, harder than it's been in decades. So yeah, get some good LGBTQ stuff for YA stuff, and donate it to a local library or a library in a state that doesn't necessarily have a lot of access to that stuff, because
It's
you
not
don't know
just-
whose life you could be changing substantially.
It's not just kids, though, too. Like, I've been all year long traveling around the country, going to cons in places I hadn't been to before. And adults are in tears. They're so happy to have content that reflects who they are. And, you feel the sort of weight of that. But I think that we need to reach out to everybody. I mean, yeah, kids, certainly, but the adults in the middle of the country are starved for this content.
Well, I think anybody. I think you look at what's being said in the media and just the way the conversation is moving on public social media platforms and everything, and the way that I was just in a bar with some friends watching the Dodgers game the other day, and those
Who?
And the
Go
ads.
Dodgers.
Yeah,
That's
great,
hockey,
go
right?
They
us.
went.
I went because my lesbians were going, and they were like, Nicole, come, and I was like, okay. But I was seeing all these ads that were like specifically targeting like trans and non-binary people, and I think like that's why comics and media and television, just queer content, is so massively impactful, because to even just see something that makes you feel good and to see something actually positive centered around queer people right now is so refreshing and so needed, and just like a much needed break from the constant hammering of just right-wing whatever they think we do.
Well, if you ever watch commercial television, almost every company now has gay couples in their commercials. I see more gay couples and more mixed race gay couples in commercials than I do straight couples anymore. You see Campbell's Soup, and there's an Asian man and a black man with their
Well,
Chinese
that's
baby
not
and stuff.
fair, because we're the ones buying Campbell's.
It's an
But I mean,
explicitly queer
but
suit.
stuff like that,
Ask
where it
anybody.
used to be controversial, I mean, Roseanne had a controversy because she kissed Mariel Hemingway.
Right.
And now you watch Fellow Travelers, and there's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Agatha.
Oh, how are they doing that?
I didn't even know you could kiss that.
I know. I didn't.
Oh God.
I want to take the last 5 minutes we got here and just kind of open it up to see if there's any audience questions out there. Does anybody have anything? Go ahead.
So I recently had a bit of a notice an artist was kind of saying something through their art of like artists give birth to themselves every time they create something new. So with your latest creation, what would you say you've given birth to with yourself?
Should I point someone out with that? Rex.
I'll go first. So I have a pen name, Ray Hero, under which I take all the classics that I grew up reading, and then I make them modern graphic novels with a queer twist. And I don't think publishing's caught on that I'm doing this, but they're about to because Dan of Green Gables is coming out in June. And that's pretty obvious. But I'm basically writing books for the kid that I was. Like, I'm like, what books do you want? And then he tells me, and I'm like, okay, I can sell that. So yeah, I think for me, like, giving queer representation to stories that everyone knows is like a really cute way to like bring attention to it.
Yes.
Great.
Anyone else?
I'm adopting Rex's answer.
Aw. I don't know. Maybe I hope I'm getting the question right, but I feel like the part of me that has been born out of writing that Alan Scott book that I just did is a writer who feels more of a connection to the community and more of a sense of responsibility for telling our whole story. You know, getting even the dark parts of our history and getting it out there. I never felt a real personal responsibility to do that, and then I saw the reaction. I still continue to see the reaction from folks like us, and I feel like, well, I didn't realize I had a megaphone. I just didn't think about it. I thought I was writing superhero comics and movies, but I do, and I feel like that's going to be part of me now for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like writing is a very isolating thing to do, and you get the people on the internet who are attacking you because you're a queer creator, or you did this, or Wiggins' hair is the wrong color, or whatever the heck's going on. But then you go to these conventions, you go to these panels, and you go to these signings, and like you realize that these works have a tangible effect on people's lives, and they really do look forward to that comic every month that you wrote or you contributed to in some way. And that kind of makes you step up and want to take on that responsibility, I think, even more.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. So,
Fight.
to the death.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit, dealing with kind of like pop culture and these fandoms where people are very passionate about them. When it comes to like online forums and stuff like this phrase has kind of popped up, and I hate this phrase. It's the "go woke, go broke." How do you negotiate with that phrase, dealing with pop culture figures and people maybe not necessarily getting nuance?
Have you met America? I think anybody that uses woke, I have a bumper sticker on my car that says, every time you say woke, God creates another drag queen.
Every time you say woke, another 21-year-old drag queen thinks she's the moment.
Because the opposite of woke is asleep. And it's just ridiculous. The right has become just buzzwords with no context, and people just regurgitate these facts because they see it on their phone. You know, when the former president says, "Oh, they're eating dogs and cats," I saw that on the internet. That's the problem. So I'm old enough now that I have no fucks left to give.
That's like thinking the stripper loves you.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait.
But woke,
wouldn't know
anytime
nothing
that
about
somebody says woke, I instantly shut down because that's just a buzzword that means nothing. You ask them to explain it. It's like with critical race theory when they say, explain critical race theory, and they're like, I'm just scared of different. You know, it's like you just don't humor it.
But don't feed the trolls. I never read comments. I don't read reviews. I don't worry about any of that. I just want to tell the story that I want to tell. And if somebody has an issue, like if you're telling a Star Wars story and you put in a queer character and everybody like flips their lid about it, it's the story you want to tell, and everybody's going to eventually come along with you if you do a good enough job. So I don't know. I just don't feed the trolls.
When you work in these big systems in studios or for big publishers, you know, you're up against it they might mean well, and they might personally be an ally, whoever you're working with, but they're under constraints and pressure from marketing and who knows who else. And so you do have to sort of deal with because there is an effect to the go woke, go broke stuff. That stuff is loud and it's out there. We just have to every day pick ourselves up and go in and keep fighting that fight and make sure that we utilize our allies in these big systems.
And we
to get
outnumber
done what we
them
need to
by
get
like
done.
5 to 1. They're loud, but they're not a big group of people. They just get a lot of attention.
And they don't really read that well anyway.
And on that
What are we writing comics for them for?
The
So good-
pictures.
Yeah.
Lots of pictures.
Which is why I make sure all my artists do really gay shit.
That's
Look, all I'm saying
that's
is the
the
Jay
button.
Nakamura, John Kent Dreamer stuff is.
Well, thank you all for popping my panel cherry. I appreciate it. Please go out and support these amazing creators, and they'll all be out there signing on the next block. We did it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed sitting in on that panel. I just wanted to say thank you all for joining me today. If you're feeling weary, you're not alone. Our commitment to each other matters more than ever, to women, to people of all shapes, sizes, and identities, to our LGBTQIA community, and to anyone feeling scared, alone, or afraid. I just hope that we can keep building the courage to face what's ahead together. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and if you're struggling, remember there's help. Reach out to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline if you need it. That's at 988. That's a nationwide number, so even if you don't live in Los Angeles, you're part of our community, so make sure that you take care of yourself. That number one more time for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is 988. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next time.
Shh.